The problem is that when recovering addicts and partners begin to compare their stories and see differences, they do something that one of my colleagues, Carol Ann Manner, says. She says they compare and despair. And this really is a big reason why I got into this topic a couple of years ago and started trying to learn more about it, is that I noticed that some of these more diagnostically complex addicts, they were in treatment, and as a clinician and the clinicians on my team, we could see that there was improvement happening, but their spouses, the betrayed partners, were really, really struggling. And so I tried to listen. And what I found is that they're going to these support groups, these betrayed partners going to these support groups, whether it's ISA or a coach facilitated group or whatever. A lot of them went to like church sponsored recovery groups, and they're hearing these stories, hearing and watching other women as they report what their husbands were doing, if the husbands were the addicted partner. And they started thinking about their own stories and their own journeys, and they began to compare them and see things appear to be very different. And they began to despair. Why doesn't my husband's recovery journey sound like that? Why isn't my husband doing that? Why isn't his therapist making him do that? Why isn't he this far along when that one is, and that one is, and that one is 6 months in, 8 months in, 10 months in? And we really started paying attention to this when we saw the need for betrayed partners whose partners, addicted partners, had these co-occurring disorders. They needed special support, it seemed, so that they could walk through this with others in a similar situation. The same is true for the addicted partners themselves. They also need this level of understanding so that they can be empowered with that knowledge for their own recovery journeys as well. A little quote from an article from 2018. Recurrent treatment failures are often the result of inadequate attention being paid to relatively quiet, co-occurring disorders. I teach at Kairos University, at Houston Graduate School of Theology, in both the master's and the doctoral program. And with my counseling students, here's what I'm always saying to them. If you want to get the treatment outcomes that you're desiring, you want to reach your goals for treatment, you have to have the right treatment. If it's not the right treatment, you're not going to hit the outcomes or the goals you want. To get the right treatment, you have to have the right diagnosis. And to have the right diagnosis, you have to have a thorough enough assessment. So assessment leads to diagnosis. Diagnosis leads to treatment planning, and treatment planning leads to good outcomes. And so if you're not getting the outcomes you want, you have to walk backwards in the chain. Is the treatment plan being followed? If the treatment plan is being followed and you're not getting the outcomes, is the treatment plan being built on the diagnosis? If the diagnosis is linked to the treatment plan and you're not getting the right outcomes, you have to take a step back even further at assessment. Is there something else going on that we missed? I will tell you, I've been humbled enough that I can admit I have had clients who I've seen over long periods of time, and they weren't getting better. And for this very small number of clients, I can now tell you, I know that for most of them, the ones who hung around long enough for us to figure it out, there was a co-occurring disorder that was not being treated. It had not been seen or dealt with. And so we were trying to just plug them in to standard addiction recovery treatment, and that was not working for these folks.